Hello, my name is Dave Polk. I am 28 years old, stand 5 foot 10 inches tall, weigh about 195 pounds, and have a full head of sandy blonde hair. I own my own construction company, Polk Homes. I inherited it when my father, Jim Polk, passed away, and he had inherited it when my grandfather had passed away. I had worked for Dad from high school through college, and into my married years. Dad was grooming me to take over the company, but I was still only an employee. Dad had me basically running the company, so I was putting in a lot of time at work. Before my dad passed away, I caught my wife, Joanne, 27, cheating with her supervisor from where she was a secretary. Joanne was an attractive woman. I thought I was lucky. One day when I was off work really early, I saw her driving down the street when she should have been at work. I followed her. She pulled into a motel, where I saw her knock on a room door, and her boss opened it, and they proceeded to embrace with hot passion. At first, I wanted to bust in the door, but I got my camera and found where the curtains did not quite close against the window frame, and I got a couple of pictures. As I was about to leave, just for the hell of it, I decided to try the door. In their haste to duck, they had not shut it completely. I slowly pushed it open and got about 6 or 7 quick pictures before they saw me. Joanne screamed and tried to cover herself up, and her boss stood up with his deck standing out like a flagpole. I went straight to my attorney and filed for divorce that day. Adultery was the reason for my asking for the divorce decree. My lawyer had a template for divorce for adultery paperwork. A process server met Joanne at her office, as she attempted to leave at 5 p.m. I use a Find My Friends type app, so I'd know where to find her. I had called in a favor from a friend who was a cop, and he did a civil standby, in case she showed up at home. I had a bunch of my friends pack up all her clothes and stuff, as I found out she went to her mom's house. I got a polite call from her mom a couple of days after, and she asked for my side. She apologized to me for her daughter. Somehow, the company found out about the numerous trysts they had. I am sure some of my friends made sure of it. It was a mess. Both the supervisor and Joanne were fired for taking company time to go duck. Since I was only an employee of my father's company at the time, she could not claim that the business was part of our marital assets. Oh, she tried. Dad's lawyers showed the limited liability company, LLC, paperwork to the court. I was not in the LLC at that time. The judge would have none of her lawyer's bullshit, and she told Joanne's lawyer to sit down. Right after I filed for divorce, my wife found out she was pregnant. I had my lawyer demand a DNA test to be administered. I did not think I was the father, basically I knew. We actually had 2 tests done. First, an amniocentesis. Amniocentesis DNA tests are 99 to 100% accurate. Then her lawyer wanted a post-birth DNA test, hoping it would give a different result. The judge bifurcated the child issues until the parentage of the baby could be verified by the second DNA test. She had to pay for it, and the baby flunked both my tests. She later took the baby's daddy to court and got child support from him. The baby passed his test. I did feel good that she was able to support her child. We did not own the house, we rented it from my dad and mom. So, there was no house to split. Was that clairvoyant? I came to think she thought I owned the house, as before we married, it was where I lived. She had just gotten herself an expensive BMW. I had a motorcycle that was free and clear, and a Ford F-250 pickup truck that was owned by Dad's company. The judge got real when she found out the child was not mine. She really took a dim view of my ex. Joanne's lawyer, a relative of hers, just out of law school 2 years, tried to get alimony from me, because she was going to be a single mother. My lawyer objected to it, pointing out that since the child was not mine, and one of the reasons for the divorce, plus, we had established the parenthood of the custard child. Her lawyer did not argue. What a jackass. He might have got a better settlement for her. I was glad for his inexperience. In some jurisdictions, any child born during a marriage was considered the husband's. I felt sorry for the supervisor's wife, but she took him to the cleaners in their divorce. Good for her. He is paying support for 2 children, and paying alimony to his stay-at-home wife. My ex got her BMW and its payments because it was in her name. Our bills were split into his and hers. A couple of years before, she had insisted on having her own checking account and credit cards in her name, so the judge, in her wisdom, gave her all her bills and her school loans, which were still quite large. I also got half of any savings accounts that each of us had. I did not have one, but Joanne had a hidden one with about $50,000 in it. That shocked me. Somehow, she had snuck money, embezzled, out of our joint accounts before taxes. I don't know how, but my lawyer proved it. And I was able to get half because of the adultery criteria of concealment of community or joint property. The injured spouse gets satisfaction, since my lawyer proved concealment. I later found out that she was building up an account to use if we divorced. She was not sure whether or not to stay with me, as I could have ended up owning the company, but that if was still over at least a year away on any timeline she had. I beat her to the punch. She had been listening to a couple of divorced friends. All I ended up with was my school loan, which was very small, and a couple of credit cards I had used sparingly during our whole marriage. Plus, I got over half of what was left after the IRS got its cut from her $50,000. She had not claimed taxes on the money. My lawyer proved she was at fault for the failure to pay taxes, so she was only able to keep around $10,000 of it, after paying the taxes and penalties. I was able to keep most of my half. I called it a cheating refund. It was called innocent spouse relief. It paid to have a good lawyer, Robert J. Jones Esquire, who was also a men's rights advocate. I heard the ex got a new job with one of my competitors, Davis Homes, but was living with her mom to save money while she paid off her bills. Her mom was not happy with what Joanne had done, because Joanne's dad had basically done that to her mom. Mom and I lose Dad. After the divorce, Dad took me in as a partner, and my income soared. A year after the divorce was final, and 10 months after Dad brought me in as a partner, Dad passed away at his desk, 3 months before his 50th birthday. No one knew that Dad had high blood pressure, hypertension, the silent killer. He wasn't good about seeing his doctor. Both Mom and I made sure that the other saw our doctor religiously from that moment on. The change of command at the company was easy. Only one employee quit. He was an asshole, so it was no big deal. Before Dad passed, we had finished the Silver Ridge development. After Dad left us, I moved into one of the houses we built. It had a mother-in-law suite, and I moved Mom into the suite. We sold Mom and Dad's house. Mom was only 47 when Dad died. We ate dinner together most nights, as Mom loved to cook. Occasionally, we would go out to eat at a nice restaurant. Life goes on. After Dad's passing, I settled down to be a bachelor company owner. Mom worked in the office with me, just like she had for Dad for over 22 years. She also watched my lack of romance and protected me, without me knowing, when she saw I was not aware of women who were not in my best interest. I was very gun-shy after Joanne, so I did not date much at all. I dove into working to make the company better. Mom finds love. It had been 2 years since Dad had passed. Mom started to get out, and actually was beginning to date. At first, I was apprehensive, but Mom told me that she and Dad had discussed if one of them passed before the other. They both had agreed that they loved each other deeply, and did not want the other one to mourn and shut themselves off for the rest of their lives, and not to live alone without someone to stand beside them. Mom began to see a man she had met while working. John was new to the town, and was a widower with a grown daughter, Catherine, or Kate, who was named after his wife Catherine Rose. Her mom had contracted meningitis when Kate was a senior in high school, and passed away in just 24 hours. He was a salesman/owner of a supplier, householder building supplies. We had started doing business with him when he opened operations and moved his main office to our town. I was really happy for Mom. After Mom had dated John Householder for almost a year, she invited him to have a special dinner with us one Friday evening. Special because Mom had him bring his daughter. I smelled the setup. I did not know that Catherine was his secretary, office girl, his girl Friday, just like Mom was my girl Friday. I had visited his office a few times while we negotiated business, and I had noticed his office girl. She was quite beautiful, but after Joanne, I was reserved in my dealings with women. I was late getting home that night. Mom knew there had been a problem on one of the job sites. I fixed it easily, but it took some time out of my day, and it did cause some stress, knowing I would be late for Mom's dinner. As I walked in, and hung up my jacket and ever-present cap, today, it was a cat cap, I turned around to give my apologies for being late, and I became mute. I saw Catherine. Kate lifted her head from the picture album Mom was showing them to kill time while waiting for me. Our eyes met, and we both froze for what seemed like 10 minutes, but really only a second or two. Mom saw my dilemma, came up, gave me a hug, and told me to go wash up for dinner. She whispered in my ear, "Put something nice on." I excused myself, explaining, "I need to wash the day off of me." Mom said, "Okay, hun, I'll start serving in 35 minutes. I took a quick but complete shower, shaved, and put on some Old Spice. Heck, it worked for Dad, it should work for me. I re-entered the living room after about 27 minutes. John gave me a handshake. Since I had done business with him, I knew him professionally, and it looked like I'd get to know him even better. John then introduced me to Kate. I put my hand out, but she was a hugger, and she hugged me. She took a deep breath and said, "You smell like Dad." Mom agreed, saying, "All my men wear Old Spice." John and I both blushed. Both Mom and Kate had a good laugh. Let me tell you about Kate. She was about 4 inches shorter than me. She was a strawberry blonde, and had wonderful curves. I had to say I was enamored by her immediately. She actually was a step up from Joanne. Joanne be damned. We sat down to dinner. I sat at the head of the table, Mom sat at the other end next to the kitchen. Kate volunteered to help Mom. In no time, we had a meal fit for a king before us. Mom had taken the afternoon off. Her boss was very understanding. Mom made her delicious pot roast with mashed potatoes and some vegetables, which I didn't eat, and Mom knew I was not much on vegetables. For dessert, apple pie. After dinner, I got up and started the dishes. Kate volunteered to help me. Mom and John went into the living room. Kate and I had a nice talk. It took longer than normal to do the dishes, because Mom had used her best china, and Mom never used the dishwasher with her best china. Kate told me, I am 26 and divorced. I said, no way. Who would give you up? Well, he was a player and a male gold digger. Dad had a background check on him, and I was crushed to find out he did not really love me. We married right out of college. I should have listened to Dad. After being married for 1 year, we caught him in bed with a woman who was 10 years his senior at a local motel. We got pictures. Thank God, Dad had talked me into a prenup. We had all the proof, so the divorce was a slam dunk. I told her of my marriage and divorce with the old school judge. I found out she had a construction management degree just like I had, but I had a second major, in design and drafting technology. Dad had pushed me to expand my knowledge. A number of times, Kate and I bumped hips, touched hands. We were moving in synchronization. She was rinsing and drying, I was washing. I'd hand her the dish, she would rinse and dry. One time, I just put my hand out like I had a dish, but it was empty. She reached out and got my hand. She turned and looked at me, and I swear, I could see stars in her eyes again. I felt like I was hit with one of Cupid's arrows. She giggled. If you wanted to hold my hand, you could just ask. I answered, I just might do that. I gave her my best flirting wink. When we finished, we went into the living room with Mom and John. They were sitting on the couch. John had his arms around Mom and her head was on his shoulder. Kate and I sat on the love seat. Mom had a romantic comedy on the TV. I put my arm on the back of the love seat behind Kate. During a romantic moment in the movie, Kate took my hand and moved it to her shoulder. Kate looked at me with those darn stars in her eyes again. During a commercial, I asked John where he lived. When he told me the address, I said, my gosh, that's one of our homes with the mother-in-law suite. He said, I know. Kate added, and I have the suite. I continued, I work on that house myself. I looked at Kate, and with a big grin, told her, I have been in your bedroom. Kate leaned into me and whispered, let me know if you need to do a re-inspection. During the credits, I asked Kate, would you like to go to dinner sometime? Like a little girl, Kate turned to her dad and said, can I go, Dad? When? All eyes looked at me. I knew that in 4 weeks there was the annual Home Builders Gala. It was a way many of us, who ended up working a lot of overtime with our companies, could take the wife out to make up for working so much. Joanne and I had gone a couple times. Would you like to be my +1 to the annual Home Builders Gala in 4 weeks? John turned to Mom and said, hey, I need a +1 if she goes with Dave. Both Mom and Kate said, yes. At the same time. Well, I was going to take Kate, so it looks like this is working out. Mom, with a big smile, said, you two are lucky we have planned to go, so we have our dresses. Kate nodded her head. Mom, Kate and I are going out for a walk in the garden. I got our jackets. We walked out to my mom's pride and joy, her garden. I had a crew set up the whole backyard to Mom's specifications. We had Mom's garden, a lawn area, and an area reserved for a future in-ground pool. We had lighted walkways and accent lights. I had a sound system put in for outdoor entertainment. I used my phone app to bring up my love song playlist. We walked hand in hand, and even sang along with some of the songs. We both felt comfortable holding hands. I stole a kiss at the end of one of the songs. Kate said in a breathy whisper, that was nice. I moved in for another kiss, and this one was not stolen, but given with passion. This kiss lasted long enough that we had to come up for air, and we had to catch our breath. It was getting late, so John called from the kitchen door, got Kate's attention, and said it was time to go. I got Kate's cell number, and I gave her mine. Mom kissed John, and Kate gave me a peck on the cheek. Love is in the air, ×2. With that, Kate and I started having a nightly call to each other. I stopped in to take her to lunch just about every day. And I took Kate out a number of times before the gala. The night before the gala, Mom and I went out to dinner. When we returned to the house, Mom said, sit down, David. I sat down, and Mom started, John has asked me to stay the night tomorrow at his house, and I said yes. With a big smile, I said, don't do anything I wouldn't do, Mom. Mom gave me the mom look. Mom went into her apartment and I retired to my bedroom. I changed into my sleeping shorts and got into my king-size bed. Mom had made sure I had great bed linens. I called Kate. "Hello, this is Dave." "Hi Dave," she giggled. "You checking to see if I am still going with you?" "Well, something has come up. Has your dad told you?" "What?" "Mom told me she is going to stay the night at your place tomorrow night." "Why, that old dog, Dad's still got it." I then said, "Kate, I was wondering if you'd want to give the lovebird some privacy. I have a guest bedroom, some good refreshments, and a few movie streaming subscriptions." Kate responded, "Well," with a joking tone, I said, "if you are afraid you can't keep your hands off me, my bedroom door has a lock." "You're sure? Does the guest bedroom door have a lock?" "Yes, I should have told you that first before I joked." "That's okay, I like your humor." I asked, "What do you like for midnight snacks?" Kate replied, "I haven't said yes yet. But I like those little pieces snacks, popcorn, and Coca-Cola." "Kate, I want to tell you I have enjoyed our times together." "Dave, I have enjoyed them, too." "Well, meet you at the gala." She replied, "I can't wait." Saturday. I slept in since we had poured cement on Friday, and I wanted it to cure till Monday. Mom and I were ready at 6:30 p.m. I drove us to the venue, and we arrived at about the start time of 7 p.m. We found a table, and when John and Kate arrived, they joined us. It was nice. Mom and John sat together, and I pulled Kate's chair out for her, and she sat next to me. Kate was dressed to the nines. Even a fairy godmother couldn't have done a better job. She was gorgeous. The waiter took our drink orders. I was driving, so I ordered a Coca-Cola. John ordered the same since he was driving also. Both ladies ordered mojitos. John tapped my shoulder and whispered, "Dave, I know you are a gentleman, so please don't let Kate have more than 2 or 3 of them." Behind my hand, I whispered to John, "I know you are a gentleman, too, so please don't let Mom have more than 2 or 3, either." John and I did a fist bump and smiled at each other. Both John and I were true to each other, and the ladies only nursed 2 mojitos each. The meal was steak or salmon. We men ordered the steak, medium rare, and the ladies ordered the salmon. I didn't know what John and Mom talked about, but Kate and I had a conversation about our lives. We talked about what we both wanted in our futures. Surprisingly, we were almost exactly the same. We talked about how we had both wanted children when we were in our marriages. It seemed we were fitting into each other's checklists without trying to. She told me she admired me owning a company. I was a little embarrassed since I just took over the company from Dad and ran it like he did. Dad was a great mentor. We covered many subjects related to relationships. They cleared and moved some of the tables to expose the dance floor. Mom and John got up to dance. They looked good together. When they came back, Mom leaned over and whispered, "Joanne is dancing with one of the executives of Davis Homes." I did not know he was divorced. It turned out he was not divorced, and his wife was sitting at their table while her husband was being polite by dancing with Joanne. When Kate and I got up to dance, I told her that Joanne was there. Kate immediately changed her dancing position by putting her arms around my neck and moving my hands down to her waist. She had a mischievous smile. She whispered to me, "I'll give her a show if you want." I just smiled. We danced 3 songs before Joanne came out on the floor with some main office guy from Davis Homes. She did not see us until she ended up right next to us. She turned her head and looked right at me. I said, "Hi Joanne, having a good time?" She was gobsmacked. Kate took that time to kiss me, with tongue. Joanne told her dance partner she needed to go to the ladies' room. As the gods would have it, Mom was in the ladies' room at that time Joanne entered. Joanne stood in front of a sink, crying and trying to dab her eyes. Mom came out of her stall, saw Joanne, said, "Hi Joanne," and left. We were waiting for Mom at the table, when Mom told me she had caught a crying Joanne in the ladies' room. We all decided it was time to go. We gathered up our swag bags and headed out. I went to my car, not knowing who was riding with me. Mom grabbed her overnight bag from my car. I was looking at John holding the door for Mom, when I heard someone clear her throat. It was Kate holding an overnight bag standing at my passenger door. I bet you could have seen my smile from outer space. I almost flew as I ran around the car to open her door. As she moved into the car, she gave me a kiss on my cheek. I got in the car, leaned over, and gave her a kiss on her lips. I drove home and pushed the garage door opener and drove in. Kate actually let me come around the car and open her door. I carried her overnight bag in for her. "You have been here before, but did Mom give you the tour?" "No, I was looking at your childhood pictures." "Okay, after you change and get comfortable, I'll give you a tour." So, I was very proud of my house. Mom's influence kept me from turning it into a bachelor cave. Between Mom and I, the house was good enough to use for pictures in our company's brochures. I carried Kate's bag into the guest room, and she followed me. As I left the room, I closed the door, I went to my room and put on my shorts and a t-shirt. About 10 minutes later, she came out to join me in my TV room. She had some cute shorts and a t-shirt on also. I had pieces, snacks and cokes for both of us. I have a 2-person power recliner. Kate took one look at it and said, "We are going to sit there, right?" "Yes, if you want to." I sat down and she sat down with me and snuggled into me. I used the remote to bring up what was on the streaming menus. Kate picked the romantic comedy 50 First Dates. I was okay with it because I liked Drew Barrymore and I could stand Adam Sandler. We watched the whole thing. When it was over, I put on the same love song playlist I had played Friday night. I turned to Kate and kissed her. Our hands began to wander over each other's bodies. As I found her breasts, she found my pants bulge. After about 30 minutes of romantic groping, I suggested we retire to my bedroom. She pressed the control to bring the chair upright. I got up, took her hand, and led her through my bedroom and into my bathroom. She looked at me a little puzzled until I asked, "Would you like to take a shower with me?" She nodded her head. We began to kiss again, while we took each other's clothes off. I turned on the shower and adjusted the temperature. I asked Kate to see if it was okay for her. When Kate looked at the shower, she said, "Wow, you could hold a dance in here." After dancing for quite a bit in the shower, we moved to the bedroom for another round, and both of us fell asleep with our arms around each other. We woke up to the smell of eggs and bacon. We put on our discarded sleepwear, then we strolled into the kitchen. John was sitting at the table, sipping coffee, and Mom was at the stove, making breakfast. I exclaimed, "Mom." Kate exclaimed, "Dad." Mom turned around and with a glow that I hadn't seen for a few years, replied, "Oh, hi honey. You two want breakfast?" Mom dished up 4 plates for the assembled group. John said to Kate with a smile and a wink, "Come on, sit down, sweetheart. Did you have a good night?" We looked at each other and then sat down. Mom came over to John and rested her head on top of John's head and draped her arms in front of John's chest. "We have something to ask you." Kate and I looked at each other again. "I think I'm going to move out." We looked at each other one more time. John asked me to marry him. "Will you be our best man and maid of honor?" Pandemonium broke out. Mom and John decided to just go down to City Hall and get married. 3 weeks later, after all of the paperwork, waiting time, the dress buying, trousseau gathering, it was done. Mom was moved into John's house a week and a half before the wedding. In those 3 weeks, Kate and I grew closer. About a week before the wedding, Kate brought over a whole lot of her clothes and started to fill the ladies' closet in my master bedroom. Our relationship had become serious and began to bloom exponentially. I finally moved Kate completely into my place, our place 4 days before the wedding. I found out that Kate had had a talk with her dad about letting my mom arrange his house, because it had become their house. And guess what? Mom had the same talk with me about my house and Kate. When I looked at it, John and I did not have a chance when the women in our lives became the best of friends. Time for a wedding. Both companies closed up Friday for the ceremony, and we showed up at City Hall. We looked good. Mom was simply gorgeous, and the smile on her face could light up a stadium, it was so bright. We had rented a hall and most of mine and John's employees showed up. We had a band. The hall's management had to sweep us out at about 1 a.m. John had decided that Kate could hold down the fort for the week, while they went to places unknown. It was really Cabo San Lucas. I was able to hold down my fort. On one of the days, Kate came over for lunch. She said, "I put my office on automatic." The Friday after the wedding, Kate brought over a great lunch for us to share. At the end of lunch, we had just finished a hell of a kiss and embrace in my office. When my phone rang, one of my job sites had a problem, so I needed to leave. I locked up the office and Kate and I left. I got home just before 7 p.m., tired and beat. It was a delivery from the plumbing supply company. My foreman and I had to deal with the late delivery, which should have showed up at 9 a.m. It did not show up at 12 p.m. It did not show up at 2 p.m. Did not show up till just before 5 p.m. I didn't blame my guys for wanting to get home. I would have to call the plumbing supply company to iron out their delivery schedule to my job sites. As I came in the door, there were pieces of paper cut out as footprints and I followed them. About every 4 feet, there was a note. The first one said, "Take your shoes off." The next note, "Take your socks off." Okay. 4 more feet, "Take your shirt off." Okay. The next note said, "Grab 2 beers from the cooler." Sure enough, there was a styrofoam cooler with beer ice down in it. Ah, nice. The next 4 feet revealed the next note, "Take your pants off." Okay. The next note, even with the hole-in closet, said, "Stop, get towels." Kate must have got tired of writing the notes because the next one said, "Come out to the hot tub." I reached the hot tub. One last note said, "Drop your boxers." There was Kate in the hot tub. It had a lot of bubbles, and all I could see was Kate's head. I heard Kate's lovely voice as she said, "Come here, baby, you've had a hard day." I slipped into the bubbling cauldron. As I settled on the built-in lounge, Kate moved to my side. We made love for most of the night. The next morning, I asked Kate to marry me, and she said, yes. We met with Mom and John, and we told them we were now engaged. Mom and John had returned home, and our two companies settled down to building homes. The only difference was Mom and Kate switched jobs. Mom worked for John and Kate for me. It was a family tradition, after all. That night, Kate and I ended up in the hot tub, naked, of course. We made love every day while Mom and John were away, and continued even when they were back. We had to relieve the stress. I sent my crew over to John and Mom's house, and they put in a new garden for Mom. It was a surprise. John kept Mom away for a whole day, from sunup to sundown. My crew left as Mom and John started for home. Kate was always calling Mom asking advice on what had become our garden. We planned a small wedding, so one day in the spring, Mom and John met us at City Hall where we tied the knot. Because of business, we only took a weekend honeymoon. The day before our wedding day, I placed a bid on a new big development. The week after we got married, the company started on the new development, Golden Ridge. I had won the bid on the big housing development 24 McMansions on 3.5 acres each, 170 middle-class starter-type homes on a quarter acre, and 50 duplexes on a quarter acre, an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school, along with a joint-use park shared with the school district and roads. It was just under 400 acres outside of town. Only one other construction company had bid on the new development. Yes, it was Davis Homes. I actually negotiated with John for building supplies, where we came to a fair and within the range of industry standards, price, but it was still lower than average. Davis Homes filed an unfair trade practices against us. Their lawyers, however, did not do their homework. Mom and I were the owners of Polk Homes, Kate and John were the owners of Householder Building Supplies, and since the marriages, we have formed a new parent company, Polk Householder Builders and Supply. It had been our lawyers' idea to protect all of us. So, buying from our own company was not a problem. The judge ruled in our favor, and Davis had to pay our legal fees. For a while, Davis Homes had it rough. Joanne almost lost her job. Polk Homes was then about twice as big as Davis Homes. By the time we finished the Golden Ridge development, Davis Homes had secured a development next to Golden Ridge, called Sunset Ridge, which was almost too big for them. But, since I liked competition, I arranged an employee exchange with Davis Homes, and they were able to finish the job. Most of my guys returned to me when the project was done. That year, I met Joanne at the annual Home Builders Gala, and she asked me why I had lent Davis Homes the workers. Well, I guess I wanted to spread the karma. Joanne had remarried one of the minor owners of Davis Homes, Robert Davis, the son of Samuel Davis. At that time, Kate returned to where we were standing. When Joanne saw that Kate was 5 months pregnant with twins, Joanne excused herself as tears were forming in her eyes. When Kate gave birth to little Rose and James Polk, it was a happy time in the Householder Polk households. A few years later, John and Mom retired and settled into the spoiling grandparents' role. When Sam died, Robert became the owner of Davis Homes. Life continued on. Sadly, a few years later, Robert Davis was killed in a car accident, and Joanne became the owner of Davis Homes. Joanne was a good secretary, but she could not run the company. The company was about to go under. It was about to become worthless. She was losing employees, and could not supply good bids for projects. Kate suggested to me that we could buy Davis Homes. I called Joanne and gave her the proposal. She accepted. We took over Davis Homes. We hired all their employees and Joanne, too. Joanne became the director of our Davis division. Joanne and Kate sat down and discussed the new dynamics of the company and our relationship. Joanne was humble and thankful that we had saved the company. After all, Joanne had 3 children. She had 2 with Robert Davis, and he had adopted her first child. Joanne explained to Kate that she was sorry for what she did to our marriage, and explained why she did what she did. My long hours and mostly her own insecurity made her feel alone and abandoned. Her boss played on her feelings and took advantage of her, grooming her to be his mistress. After she married Robert Davis, she understood that running a construction company required a lot of time away from family. Joanne and Kate became friendly co-workers I kept out of the relationship. Silver Ridge, Golden Ridge and Sunset Ridge became the premier housing developments in the area. Mom and John retired and were great-grandparents until the day they went to heaven. Kate and I ran Polk Householder Builders and Supply until James and Rose finished college and took over from us. Kate and I are in the spoiling grandparents business now. Joanne never remarried and became a spoiling grandparent herself. I hired all 3 of her children, and they get along with our kids on and off the job. Joanne and I are now friends, I guess. No need to carry pain around when I have my beautiful Kate by my side. We all agreed not to tell any of the kids that Joanne and I were once married. No need to add drama to the little community of the Ridges, as the locals call it. Mountain Ridge High has a pretty good football team and baseball team, and all the girls' sports teams are rated number 1 or number 2 in the state. Sitting in the bleachers, watching grandsons run for yardage, or watching granddaughters pitch a softball no-hitter can make a grandpa so proud. Go Mountain Lions. By the way, the athletic fields of Mountain Ridge High top rated thanks to a local construction company's tender care. Now, all I can say is, thanks Mom for the setup.